At this time, I'd like to introduce your panelist, Richard, to begin the presentation. Go ahead, Richard.
Hi, everyone, and thanks, Kim. I'm Richard Carrier. I'm the head of global marketing and the head of the US operation of CyberLink. And I'm here to give you some thoughts, share with you the status of facial recognition technology, particular our solution called FaceMe, and present and discuss how it can be an interesting source of value add for your customers, as well as revenues for you. So I'll do a presentation for about half an hour. Write down your questions. After that, it will be open for questions. I'll be very happy to answer them to the best of my knowledge. So first, a quick word on CyberLink. We are pretty new to facial recognition, which is it's a type of solution that is also relatively new to the market, but CyberLink has been around for almost 25 years. We develop our other line of business is making software and apps for video, photo, streaming, etc. So if you've used a Windows PC in the last 20 years, you've probably used some of our products, whether it's Power DVD or Media Player or other products. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is because facial recognition is something that is done. There are hundreds of solutions out there in the market, but most of them either are not very performing well, they're not secure, they're slow, and they're not very precise. So with all our years of expertise, we really developed a very strong solution that is one of the probably top 10 in the world in terms of accuracy. But also, interestingly, while most solutions require expensive and not necessarily secure cloud-based processing and storage, our solution can run at the edge. So you're all in the industry of POS and selling POS devices to your customers, so we can run right there on the premises without necessarily a connection. We also run cross-platforms. So whether it's systems that run on Windows, Android, iOS, or even legacy solutions running on Linux, our solution can integrate into every environment. So that's something that differentiates us from most of the solutions out there. So when we talk about facial recognition, there's a broad area of things. Those of you who use iPhones, probably you are using facial recognition every time you unlock your phone, and you're likely using it already when you do your online banking and to log into a bunch of sites. So it is something that's being widely adopted, and it can do several things. The most basic level is detecting faces. So there are solutions, for example, those who have home cameras that will detect motion, whether it's a human or an animal or something. Well, face detection makes sure that you detect only faces. So that's the first level. It can be used to monitor traffic, to monitor access, etc. Facial recognition is being able to identify who is this person. Then you can identify landmarks. And important when it comes to statistics that you want to collect, especially in the context of retail or public places, etc. We can identify, without knowing the person, the gender, the age, the mood they're in, and also if there are people registered, whether they're employees, VIPs, blacklisted people, we can instantly detect in a few milliseconds who these people are, what they're doing. So these are, at a high level, that's how I would summarize facial recognition, the solution that we have. Just before I go further, our solution is what we call an SDK, as it shows on the screen. So it's a software development kit. So it's just like Dolby, for example, when you develop, when you buy a audio video equipment, you can have Dolby technology to enhance the sound. Our technology is the same kind of thing. So it needs to be embedded into other software and hardware, which we do typically through partners who are system integrators, or through IoT, so equipment manufacturers that will embed it. So this is something to keep in mind as we go through. I won't spend too much time on this slide. It's very technical, but essentially give you an idea what I mean when it runs on edge devices. It means that it can be embedded in any systems. It can run on mobile devices, and in a moment I will show you actually a use case to authentify the user of a Zebra tablet. So Zebra kindly supplied us one of their tablets, since they are also involved to sponsor this webinar. And so these are the kinds of things we can do, and there's a bunch of other use cases I'll go through. POS systems, interactive kiosks, signage, etc. So these are all devices we can run in, and I won't go into too much details, but in terms of performance, we're in the business of optimizing, so we can run on very powerful servers if there's a need for it. For example, if you have 300 IP cameras in a store or in a stadium or a hospital, whatever, so we can run on that, but we can also run things as simple as a camera that would have a chip embedded on it. So that's how our solution works. And in fact, FaceMe, we have two ways to go to market, so two ways to get to you and your customers. One of them is embedding into IoT edge devices, so whether it's authentication on tablets, door entry system, there's industrial PCs that typically will be connected to digital signs, for example. It could be locks, it could be POS solutions, interactive kiosks, etc. Or otherwise, we can also integrate into solutions where a system integrator would come and implement, deploy a complete surveillance system in a location, whether it's a store, factory, hospital, public building. And in that case, this is where we work with you and with system integrators. Since a lot of you are probably interested in solutions in the retail environment, I wanted to show you how a retail journey can be transformed integrating facial recognition solutions like ours. I'm sure lots of you are familiar with the Amazon Go concept store, where basically it's all about self-service. I mean, there's lots of good, interesting things there, but also requires a phone, requires login, and it's not necessarily a solution that is available to anyone. So with our technology, like starting with the moment people walk, let's say in a mall, through digital sign, we can identify people demographics and help them interact with them to find what they want. When people walk in the store, if they are registered, just like, for example, at Starbucks, a lot of you have a phone, on your phone you have an account, you can scan a code there. Wouldn't it be great if the moment you walk in the store, assuming you have agreed to do that, so you have enrolled in their program, that automatically you'll recognize people greet you, or the system greets you. Then store traffic. With cameras and the facial recognition, we can identify patterns in the store, so figuring out how efficient are the displays, are the items proposed in the store, and help the store owners and designers improve that. We can collect statistics. And then at checkout and payment, going back to my Starbucks example, wouldn't it be great if you didn't have to pull out the phone from your pocket? If you're like me, half the time I'm there, I'm logged out of the app, so I need to remember or reset the password, so I give up and I just use my my cash or credit card. So if you were able to be recognized instantly with your face, process a transaction, because it's not necessarily a high value transaction, and then walk out of the store. So these are the kinds of things that that we can do in a retail environment. In fact, yeah, and here we're listing, and I'll show you a video in a moment, but that we can authentify all the POS devices, so mobile terminals that employees will use, for example, to pick up orders in a restaurant. Digital signage personalization is an interesting one. Somebody walks in a store, if it's a teenage girl versus a middle-aged man, might be able to propose different things. Our solution can collect stats very precisely around gender, age, mood, and even the view angle. So if you have a camera in front of a display, people look at specific areas, you can identify where there's interest, so creating a heat map. Mentioned VIP blacklisted customer alerts. So you have people who self-enroll as a VIP customer, for example, for a luxury brand store. When they walk into their regular store, they are a known person, they have the private shopper that will help them. Would it be great if walking in a store in the same chain in another city, even another country, if you are recognized, as long as you opt in and have a private shopper come greet you and say, well, we're glad to have you in our store. We know you're visiting from this place. Please let me give you a great experience. Alert for suspicious people. I just read a couple of days ago that Walmart now has this kind of technology in over 1,000 stores. So to identify shoplifters or undesirable visitors. So this thing is really starting to happen. And then there's other things in terms of, for example, staff attendance. So for clocking in, it's a much better solution, faster, and cannot be fooled versus using cards and things of that nature. So let me show you a quick video here that will explain our solution. So one thing, the solution can recognize several people at once, which is something that can be good. So we have people coming to the store. Here we have the example of a VIP customer walking in and identify that it's a happy moment. We can collect statistics on visitor traffic, have systems that collect that aggregate them. And store people can be notified of the arrival, for example, of a VIP person. So they can come, give them a special experience, give them a VIP gift, etc. So this is the kind of experience that we can create through facial recognition. Now let me just figure out how to go back to my slides. Okay. So just before I get into a series of use cases, I thought it would be worth spending a couple minutes talking about where's the value. Like for retailers or stores or restaurants or hotels or hospitals, whatever industry you're targeting for your customers, I think one of the key benefits is you can create a very targeted and rich customer experience, either targeted to the demographics, or if, again, people opt in a program, you can welcome them back, greet them in a very personalized way. Can collect very precise customer stats, so there's no more guessing. Typically, that will transfer in higher sales, but then also, as I was mentioning, things like installing facial recognition into clocking system, access to secure areas, then it can reduce losses, it can reduce operating expenses, be more precise, etc. So there's lots of benefits clearly for people, for your customers. As for you in the industry, I think one thing we've heard a lot is we want to be able to add value to our solutions. So we want also to have shorter sales repeat cycles. The beauty of introducing software solutions into POS solutions and hardware is that you can update constantly the software without necessarily replacing hardware. At the same time, we're all familiar, those of you going back to my smartphone example, that it's always good to have the latest. So for you, it can reduce sales cycles. Also, while we are very flexible to the kind of revenue model that can be offered to you, you can offer a service, so basically software as a service or recurring revenue, so that with the customers on a monthly or annual basis, you have revenue streams coming in. So you don't reset the clock for your sales to zero comes beginning of year. And while I won't touch on it too much today, because our solution works well in the store, but also if customers opt in the complementary mobile shopping solution of the customers, the businesses you work with, then it creates a very good anchor into an omni-channel strategy. So first use case I wanted to show, and this is one that I think is highly relevant in handheld devices. It can be used for user authentication. So instead of entering a password or things like that for, let's say, employees who take orders in a restaurant, in a store, whatever, the moment they look at it, just like people would look at some of their smartphones, it can work. And I'll show you in a moment an example with a Zebra tablet. It can also have an authorized user alert. If somebody picks up in handheld in a store in a place they're not authorized to, automatically would be recognized as, oh, this person, there's a person, but this person should not be holding this device. So that's good. Or some cases, handheld devices are handed to customers and visitors for them to interact. For example, filling out some questions, looking at menus, etc. So we can automatically identify the demographics, the feeling of the people, and guide them better. So these are some of the things that can be done. So let me show you a very quick video. In this video, what you will see is how in a fraction of a second, that's why it's a short video, somebody picks up a Zebra tablet and can authentify who they are. Here you have tablet, and literally we're there, a fraction of a second, the person is identified, and here they are. They have access to the content of the tablet. That's simple. Okay, another use case that's quite popular and gaining traction is digital signage. And here you have a couple of things. You can have signage that has just either static, or I would say pre-programmed content pushed through CMS, to content management systems. At the very basic, you can collect statistics on who's looking at it, how long, age, mood, etc. So that's something, and you can have these statistics aggregated. Or even better, you can integrate into hardware and CRM. So what it does is, as I was saying, depending on who's looking at it, are they happy, puzzled, whatever, you can propose personalized display ads, so better guide them, improve their experience, and improve the efficiency for your customer. Now bring that a step further, and this is where we talk about smart kiosks. So same idea, a smart kiosk is like a digital sign with transaction order taking and transaction processing. So I imagine the experience with facial recognition. You go to the kiosk. If you are a registered VIP customer, they can recognize you and say, "Hi, Richard, welcome back." You know, typically, like most times, you order this burger, so we have a special deal for you if you want that today, and create a personalized experience. Or if I don't, the person is not enrolled, but let's say it's 11 a.m. and let's say a older couple shows up at the, let's say, McDonald's, and they're identified the kiosk. So maybe the first thing that can come up on the menu is a nice cup of coffee or tea with a pastry. Whereas if it's 3 p.m. and you have a group of teenage boys, maybe they're coming back from training, so you'll offer them the supersized meals. Then when comes the time to do the transaction, if you have somebody registered, maybe you just ask them, say, "Oh, Richard, you want to use your Amex as usual to pay?" And then the moment you say yes or whatever, then automatically your payment is done. You didn't have to pull anything out of your pocket. So this is an example of kiosk. Queue management is another interesting one that you see either at concessions in stadiums or in stores. Like, because we can identify up to, I think, 70 faces at the same time with one camera, and we can have several. So we can count visitors, we can help identify queues so we can redirect people. You can add service staff, so send alerts for that, etc. And then also you can identify a customer service quality. So are people happy to wait, or are they getting angry? So these are the kinds of things that you can do without even knowing who are the people. So you just know in real time. I was talking earlier about access control, sign-in. So there's a few things here. Obviously, there's a precise, frictionless authentication. And what you see on the image, we have solutions that we develop. So our technology is embedded into solutions like those from the Tashi and other companies. So the moment somebody shows up, they are authentified. I didn't touch on this earlier, but our technology also does anti-spoofing, which means that if somebody flashes a picture or even a video of somebody in front of the camera, because it's not a real person, our technology will identify it, so making it very secure. For employees, can decrease absenteeism, because clearly someone cannot give their card, their employee card, to a friend or colleague to tap in and clock in for them. And also it can protect secure areas. So this is a use case that's ready to go. It's used, in fact, it's deployed in many cases. Surveillance is another one. So wherever you have IP security cameras or things like that, so it can control door access. So let's say this is an employee, this is somebody who should not come in, or this is a registered visitor. So you can pre-register visitors, then you can let them in automatically by facial recognition. And of course, it keeps records. But also, it can lock the door or not unlock. Let's say somebody shows up with their face covered. There's a chance they might have bad intentions. So in that case, maybe you can send an alert to somebody who goes and greet them. If it's just because it's very cold outside that day, or for religious or personal reasons, somebody has their face covered, then you can let them in, there's no problem. But let's say if it's somebody who clearly has bad intentions, you have that added security. So and that's something that can be installed in brand new system, or working with system integrators can be retrofitted in several legacy security systems. So it's a good one. I was mentioning about sending alerts. We have a solution called U Alerts, which essentially is an instant messaging system. And what it does is that it will send notifications to people about anyone who shows up in front of a camera. That could be a VIP, a guest, an employee, an intruder, and then action can be taken automatically. So it can reduce the cost in security staff, but also makes much faster reaction time, whether it's for a good or bad reason. Touch on transaction processing. So here it's interesting. There's several use cases. One of them is small transactions that can replace any card or any access or PIN. And in case you wonder, facial recognition with our solution, the risk of a false recognition is about 1 in a million. Much more precise, let's say, than fingerprint or iris recognition, which is around 1 in 10,000. And I cannot say how much more efficient and secure it is than a 4-digit PIN or a password, which might be your first name and your date of birth. So in that case, if it's a small transaction, depending on the deployment, you might want to use purely facial recognition, process a transaction. If it is, let's say, a bank ATM or important transaction, it can be an additional means of authentication. So you might want to connect somebody's, like, their access card, and then with the match the face. We have cases for some controlled substances, let's say alcohol. Not yet in the US, but that's something that could be deployed in the US or elsewhere, is vending machines for products with alcohol in it. So Imagine if all people have to do is enter the driver's license or ID card that's a government issue that proves their age in the kiosk, in the vending machine, then the camera identifies their face as well, and then you can go through with the transaction. So there's lots of things there that can be done and integrated. If any of you is selling POS equipment in the medical space, this is an area where we're having traction for many reasons. First, patients. You have a lot of people at hospitals, between patients, visitors, and all the personnel that's there. So having systems where you monitor traffic, control, security, it's pretty good knowing where your patients are going. Some cases, patients might be confused, so you don't want them necessarily to disappear. There's one around automation for different lab tests, etc. So employees, patients go there, they're automatically recognized. Medicine cabinets is one also, where people are authorized to go to the medicine cabinets, especially for some restricted or expensive drugs and care products. And it's quite important to keep track. And today's solutions for these are either passwords, cards, or fingerprints. We talk about hygiene, so if you can have something that's totally contactless, it works. And our solution will work even for medical personnel who will have masks on their face and the bonnet on their head, etc., as long as the enrollment is done. So it's very precise. And there's also things, I know there's POS equipment for the personnel to identify patients before they interact with them. So the most deployed thing we see is these bracelets with the barcode and scanners. Now this takes time. It requires physical control between the personnel and the patient, which might not be the safest one for hygiene and health reasons. So now if you were able just to look at the patient, authentify them so you can get going. So these are a number of use cases that exist in the medical space. Industrial access, so warehouses or industrial facilities, we do have deployments in industrial construction sites, etc. And there could be a different thing. It could be access control. So you can even record employees coming in and coming out as they walk freely, right? Having several of them walking at once in some facilities. I can monitor secure areas. We can monitor delivery, pickup, visitor access. We even have a solution where you can match the faces, for example, of a truck driver with the license plate, how much time they spend in the facilities. And there's also a very important one, which is around alerts when employees are operating under hazardous solutions. For example, Joe goes in the freezer room at the back of a restaurant or a grocery store. If Joe is still there after 20 minutes, you might want to go see if he's freezing to death. So that gives you alerts, or it could be dangerous substances, etc. So these are the kinds of ways that we can integrate our solution. So here it is. So that's what I wanted to present to you. There's a lot there, but now I'll be happy to open up to questions from anyone.
Thank you, Richard. At this time, we'd like to take a few moments to answer any questions that you might have. Please feel free to enter those questions in the box to your right, and we'll get through them all. The first question I have for you, Richard, is how can I get FaceMe and sell it to my customers?
Yeah, that's a very good question. As I mentioned at the beginning, FaceMe is an SDK, so it's essentially lines of software code. So just like I was saying, you cannot go to the store and buy Dolby sound system. You need to buy something that would integrate their technology. So it's the same idea. So the way it would work for you, I mean, for the VARs and people reselling equipment here on this webinar, it's basically either identifying some of your hardware partner who wants to integrate our solution into it, and then we can work together, or in some cases go through system integrators who could integrate our solution in a specific deployment in a store. Orgo, I don't want to plug Blue Star necessarily, but obviously Blue Star is a partner of us. So if you have a solution with a customer, you can contact them. And then working with Blue Star and the different partners to the company, we can come with a solution for you.
Great, thank you. My next question is, how much does a change in facial hair affect accuracy?
Facial hair doesn't affect accuracy at all unless unless it hides completely the mouth, the nose, and the eyes. So I don't want to be presumptuous, but as long as, like, what we do, we measure over 500 points and vectors on the face. This is how our technology works. Maybe I should have mentioned it earlier. So we don't take like a full picture of the face and keep the picture. So talk about security storage. All we do is we measure vectors, boil them in a very small file that's highly encrypted. And then based on that, depending on the use case and the level of precision you want for your solution, this is how you can still identify somebody even if they grow facial hair. Of course, if you want to protect like the vaults to a bank, maybe if somebody grows their facial hair, you want to raise the bar so that unless there's 99% accuracy, you won't unlock. So this person, you might want to enroll them with more pictures, but most of the use cases, it has absolutely no impact.
Very interesting, thank you. My next question is, what is your business model and how is it priced and what is the revenue for VARs?
Yeah, that's a good question as well. So we are very flexible in our revenue model. Typically, what we would do is offer FaceMe as a license, either a perpetual license, or it could be a software as a service, so an annual subscription. Depending on the VAR's business model, the solution that the VAR wants to deploy with their customer, we're open to both. And typically, what we do is that we sell to a certain discounted price to the VAR who can resell to their customers. So that's how we work. I can't put a price like, say, it's $100 per camera or per device, etc. So it's a case by case. But as we are working with manufacturers, for example, for some equipment that embed our technology, then it's basically you buy the product from that manufacturer. It's all built in. Or if it's something that you integrate in a very specific solution, then we can decide, is it relevant to have a license pricing that's per site, that's per camera, that's per device, and that's how we'll talk to you. But typically, we will match your business model.
Great, thank you. My next question for you is, how can I get and try FaceMe?
Yes. If you are interested in trying FaceMe, that's a very good way to get familiar with the product. So what I would say is, I believe with this webinar, you have contact info, so you just contact us. Typically what we do is that we sign a non-disclosure agreement with people who want to try our product, and then we will give you demo software that includes FaceMe, either for smart retail, for security, or what we call a test bed, so you can test all the settings on the solution, and depending on where you want to deploy it, we can give you versions that run on a Windows device, Linux, Android, or iOS, and you can do your own testing. So as simple as contacting us, get a small NDA in place, and we can start exploring this together.
Great, thank you, Richard. It looks like that's all of the questions that we have for you today. Again, I'd like to thank you all for joining us today for our webinar presentation. I'd also like to thank Richard for taking the time and presenting for us. As a reminder, the recording will be emailed to you tomorrow afternoon, so be sure to listen again and share with your colleagues. Have a great day, and we look forward to presenting to you again real soon.